Welcome to Venture TV. Today I'm here with Yaron Galai. Yaron is the founder of Outbrain that you will probably know because meanwhile Outbrain, you'll find it under every article that you read. It's a pretty big phenomenon. The word behind it is content marketing. But Yaron, tell us what Outbrain is. How would you describe it?
Outbrain is a content discovery engine. We power the content recommendations on some of the world's best publishers. So CNN, Fox News, ESPN in Germany with Bild and Focus and Handelsblatt and Sports One. So many of the best sites.
And earlier it worked like the magazines promoted their own articles below the articles, so that when you were reading the article and you were at the end, you could discover more of their content because they wanted you to stay on the site, longer time on the site, more ad impressions and so on. Now they integrate Outbrain. What does it mean financially for them, or why do they do it at all?
Yeah, so with Outbrain, we power two types of links. One is, as you said, the links that stay within the same publisher's site. That is actually about 3/4 of all the clicks that we drive are those internal links. We call them the organic links. There's no cost involved in that, and it creates a lot of value with the users and a lot of engagement. And then about 1/4 of the clicks actually go to other content sites, whether it's other publishers or content marketers, and those we get paid for and we share the revenue with the publisher. So the reason for the publisher to put those links that go outside, sometimes even to competitors, is that it does two things. It improves the user experience for the user. They can discover content that happens to be on other sites, and the publisher gets paid on the way out. Otherwise, when users leave the site, they just close the browser and go to Google, and Google gets paid for it. So it's a better user experience, and the publisher gets paid on the way out.
So your recommendation engine, you try to analyze the performance of all articles, and you recommend the articles that are particularly successful. You recommend them more often than articles that do not work that well. So it even helps you to improve the performance on your side. Right?
Absolutely, and the core of everything we do at Outbrain is personalization of the content recommendations. So we try to understand what each individual is interested in. We look at all the content and what people are consuming, and then based on those two data signals, the personalized data about the user and the data about the content, we try to make the recommendations for each individual.
Didn't know that. I thought that was generic headlines that just work well for everyone, but actually it's not.
No, so there's the behind the scenes is we've built over 9 years, we've built about 50 different algorithms. Some of the algorithms do look at the most popular stories and make sure that those get recommended, but a lot of the algorithms are very personalized, and they look at your history and your data, browsing data, and people that are similar to you, and makes recommendations based on that.
Let's talk about the 25% of links that link out of the site. Where do they link in general?
So 100% of what we link to, whether it's in the site or outside, links to content. That's the whole idea with Outbrain. It's a content recommendation engine. The links that stay within the site, those are easy. It's the stories within the same publisher. The links that link out, there are generally two types. One is other publishers that want to acquire an audience, and the other is content marketers. So brands, for example, or small businesses, and those promote two types of stories. It's either content that they create, their blog or content that they own, or it's content that was written about them, say a great review of a car. Marketers love it, but that story kind of fades away within an hour or two. So with Outbrain, they can keep pointing people to those stories.
So you can promote your own company blog if there's good information on it, but then every reader sees that it's a corporate blog, so it's, well, sometimes interesting, but you always see that there's a sponsor behind it, and that's pretty clear who the sponsor is. But then there's these like hidden recommendations. So you had your brand featured in some magazines, and you link to them. It's pretty interesting, actually. So you can promote good articles about your stuff.
Yeah, it's nothing is hidden about it. So it's just recommending content that's available. It's it's content that's out there, and you can link to it. All we do is link to it.
When online magazines use it to promote their own stuff, their articles, they have to pay for the click out to their site, and then they have to try to earn money with their site, with banner ads and whatever they use. I don't know how much is a click. What's the how many cents is a click from Outbrain out to something else?
Yeah, so clicks on Outbrain are generally much more affordable than they are on search or social. The average really depends, but generally from 5 cents, US cents, to I'd say 20, 30 cents is typically where the averages are. I'd say we're content greedy. And so when the algorithm gets more content and higher quality content, people engage with it more, the marketer can reduce the price they pay.
Yeah, okay.
The marketer is the one that sets the price. And if there's more content, price goes down.
Perfect question to come to the topic of good headlines and good articles. Which articles work best? Like, do you have an all-time high, and what is that article?
Ooh, I'm sure we do, but I don't look at that.
Okay. You probably do. Just want to talk about it.
Yeah. No. Look, there's headlines that work well, and there's content that works well, and those sometimes are the same, but many times are not. Yeah. And I think what we try to be careful is not to optimize just for the clicks, because the clicks really, all they do is optimizing for sensational headlines and all that. What we try to do is focus on the clicks and the engagement after the click. And that's usually the best reflection of where the consumer got value. They found something interesting in the headline, and they actually spent time there and consumed it and came back for more. Okay. So that, I think, is the more interesting signal, not just the clicks.
The concept of Outbrain is quite cool because it's a lot less spammy than all banner ads, and yeah, even I click on the articles quite frequently. And I ask myself, why did nobody invent it before? Why was it invented quite late?
Well, we invented the space back in 2007 when we started the company. So
not that late. Okay.
Yeah, so it's been around for a while, but it took me the whole 8 years of my previous company, the one I did before that, where we were a contextual ad network, to realize that although there's good financial outcomes to it, there's a business to be had, as a consumer, I didn't find value in those ads. Mm-hmm. And so I was trying to think, is there anything where there's someone that would pay and sustain publishing, but that I as a consumer would actually appreciate and want to come back to over and over. And that's where I said, well, it's obvious, it's content. All I came to do on a content site is consume content, not consume ads. Okay.
You talked about your company that you had before. So we'll come to your story as a founder. What is it? When did you decide to become a founder and start a business?
Oh, that's all I've done. So I've never had a real job. When I needed a job, I started a company, and Outbrain is my fourth company. The previous two were both in the same space of ad tech, and the previous company I mentioned, called Quigo, is basically where we invented the space of contextual advertising. So before content marketing, my team and I invented the space of contextual advertising, which is very similar to Google AdSense.
It is.
Yeah. So we were building it alongside at about the same time a little company that had a product called AdSense. That's not Google. Google eventually acquired them and made it into Google AdSense.
So it was not Google originally. They acquired a company. And that company is now their by far biggest product.
That's probably what. So Google has some incredible acquisitions, and AdSense has to be one of them. I think they acquired them for about $100 million, and it's probably been they've made it back. And
Outbrain will be the next acquisition of Google?
We're building a great, sustainable, independent company. That's what we've done from day one. I think the world needs a good content discovery engine and platform, and our plan has always been to build a great, independent company.
Coming to the question, what you can do to be ahead of your competitors, because there are some companies that do the same. Outbrain is the largest company. You invented the format, right?
Yes.
But still, there are people who are doing the same. Some even are from Israel, where you are from. How do you react, and how do you react, and how do you stay on top of all of them?
Yeah, I think many companies have taken inspiration from what we've pioneered at Outbrain, definitely.
It's a nice way to say it.
Yeah, and and I think overall competition is a healthy thing. We're in such early stages of the content marketing market, where I think all the companies in the space, including all those that took inspiration from us, are growing rapidly, and there's still a lot more room to grow. I think the core difference between us and all of competition is that competition, most of competition at the end of the day is looking at the real estate and saying, this is content, but it's also really ads. We'll just take whoever's paying anything and we'll put it in here. And I think that's smart for monetization, but for the user, it's not necessarily. Users aren't looking at this and saying, monetization is good here, I'll engage with it and I'll click on it. Okay. Right? Users are looking and saying, do I get value? Yeah. And so Outbrain has been the only platform that has stayed pure with content, and we're the only real content discovery engine that is stuck to that.
Yeah. You are online marketing unicorn, meanwhile, so your valuation is really that high that people call you a unicorn. As a founder, what can you do to become a unicorn? Like, your perception, do you think that happens and you have to have luck, or is there something, because you've done it almost not. The last company you sold was sold for 400 million, I guess.
About.
So you have to have a secret formula to maybe not create unicorns, but at least create really, really big and successful companies. What do you think is the secret key behind it?
So I have no idea how to create unicorns. No. And I think the whole unicorn thing also is just a bit misleading. Private company valuations are not the same as public company market caps. They're a very different thing. There's preferences and structures and things that make the whole unicorn thing is a bit of smoke and mirrors.
True.
Yeah. I think in terms of building a successful company, I approach my companies as building something that I am passionate to see in the world that I don't see yet. And my only hope in building something that eventually becomes successful is that I'm not the only one. And so when I started Outbrain, it was really out of a passion for reading, a passion for publishing, not seeing the business models that can sustain publishing, and figuring out if I can build a content recommendation engine for myself, I would absolutely love to engage with it and discover content. And so I think the only trick with that is just make sure it's not just for me, and there's maybe one or two other people in the world that would appreciate content recommendations.
But what is the secret about growth? How, like, you have a good idea, taken, but you make companies big. Is there something that, like, some keys and some triggers that you have to pull to make it big?
I think so. Funding, not running out of money, is a pretty good idea. But then it takes just a lot of tenacity and iteration. And I'd say the number one most important ingredient for successful startup, doesn't guarantee it, but most critical is focus, because a startup has so little resources to succeed in anything that it can't afford to do more than one thing very well. And I think what we've done amazingly well at Outbrain is just focus on making the best content recommendation for the user and iterate on it day in, day out until we make that better than anyone else in the world. So I think focus is probably the best tip.
Well, what's the best tip for focusing? Because there are so many distractions, so many things you can do. How do you focus, and how do you select the things that are best for the company?
So selecting the things that are good for the company to do, that's easy. It's probably even too easy, because as entrepreneurs and product people, we have ideas all day long, and ideas are really easy and cheap. I think the hardest thing with focus is all the things you shouldn't do, the things to cut away. And the way we've approached it is, since the day we started the company, Ori, my co-founder, and I, we set what we call our company Lighthouse, which is, some companies would call it the mission, but it's what we try to do, which is essentially provide the user with the best content recommendation. And then anything that's not serving that lighthouse directly, we try to kill and cut out and eliminate. And I think that's the more difficult piece, is all the things not to do.
Okay. As our last question, what tips do you have for founders that they should really prevent, just not do? Let's make it 2, I don't know, maybe you even have 3, but what have you learned so far, like, where you can tell people, just don't do it?
Well, there's one very technical little detail that I think is probably my number one most important advice. Do not give your the early investors, the seed investors, a right of first refusal on the next rounds. It's very technical. It's not going to interest most of your audience.
But still good to know, and it's really important for you.
Critically important.
Think about it.
Critically important. I'd say in choosing investors, I think I used to focus in the past more on things like valuation. I think valuation almost doesn't matter. I think the board member that you're going to work with probably matters the most in selection of an investor. How clean the terms are, way more important than the valuation. And then maybe third or fourth would be valuation. I'd say, again, focus is a big one, and just selecting a team. That's basically the only thing as a founder that's really my job, is making sure we don't run out of money, don't hit the wall, and hire a great team. That's what I do.
You have 400 people right now, I guess?
Over 500.
Over 500, meanwhile. All right, so good luck with selecting the next 500. Thanks for being here. Thanks for all the things that you shared with us, and good luck.
Thank you. Thank you very much.